Mickey 17 is doo poops.
Robert Pattinson's voice was the wussiest thing I've ever heard, and the premise of the movie was as dumb as his voice.
Mickey 17 is yet another example of Hollywood's woke machine overshadowing the essence of its source material.
Weird, not very good, the Hulk actor's voice and stupidity ruined everything.
There was no threesomes.
Mickey 17 is in theaters, and Bong Joon-ho's blank check post-Oscar movie is all the buzz. Welcome back to Movies Good Internet Bad. I'm Corey, that's Shane. We're breaking down Mickey 17. A lot to talk about in this one, and as you can tell by the intro, lots of thoughts on the internet. Shane, how are you, sir?
Doing well? This was one that we had talked about for quite a while because it seemed like it was just in development hell or finished and just sat on for a long period of time. So it was interesting that we finally got to see it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit once we get to the politics section of the video.
Yeah.
Go ahead and subscribe to the channel after that one, folks. So Shane, what were your overall thoughts, without spoiling anything yet, about this movie?
Yeah, I think overall I would sum it up as an entertaining mess.
Okay.
I think overall I had fun with it. Robert Pattinson is great. I think I was very into it for the first half, and then it kind of all falls apart, and a lot of script threads get either cut off or not set up, or I think it felt like he was trying to do too much with the movie, and in doing so, didn't do enough. But it's still fun. I would still recommend it if you're a fan of Bong Joon-ho, if you're a fan of cinema in general. Like, we should be supporting original ideas like this that swing
100%.
high, even if they didn't always land.
Yeah, I agree. The phrase "full director mode" comes to mind with this one. Kind of like
Yeah,
when Nolan did Tenet, when Chazelle did Babylon. The list goes on and on of when a
yeah,
director hits a certain amount of acclaim that they end up getting full final cut on one of their films. And there's nobody there to, as Bradley Cooper would say, rein them in.
yeah. It it
It's a
was
good time at the movies, but a little bit messy. Yeah.
it was a George Lucas. I may have gone too far in a few places moment. Yeah, totally. This is, if you take everything that Bong Joon Ho is known for and crank it up to 11,
Yes.
that was this movie. And like you said, Tenet's a very good example where Nolan's like, I love doing different timelines, so let's make it go backwards, and then
Right.
it like all falls apart. It was like this, where it's like he's going to include little snippets from everything that he's done so far, and then really, really, really hit you over the head with a political message, just in case you weren't paying attention. Uh, and I think it works in some places and doesn't work in others. I
Sure.
appreciate the tone and the humor. I think he is excellent at balancing the serious with
Hmm.
the chaotic. I didn't have any issues with the tonal whiplash in this at all,
No.
which it really easily could have gone there.
Yeah.
But I think it was serious when it needed to be serious. It was off the wall crazy when it needed to be crazy. But it never, it didn't feel like a Taika Waititi movie, or it was like, I don't know if you should be joking in this specific moment type of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
I think he really balances that well. But all in all, I think where the movie really lets itself down is the script.
Okay. That's fair. You mentioned politics. Let's just get right into that. So to make things very clear, this movie was not shot yesterday. This movie was not shot a month ago. This movie was not shot in November of 2024. This movie was shot from September of 2022 until January of 2023. So take that for what it's worth. Shane, what is the political pulse on this film?
Oh God. Uh,
If you had to summarize it in 30 seconds, what are we talking about here?
there are movies that are subtle with their political messaging. There are movies that are over the top with their political messaging. And then there is Mickey 17, which leaves absolutely no doubt. This is, when you see this movie, it is Mark Ruffalo playing Donald Trump. Like, they might as well have named him that in the movie. Like, at the intro scene, he's doing like an Alec Baldwin Trump impression and even does the Trump dance. And I was like, are they really just doing it? It was crazy. Um, it half of the people that see this movie are going to hate it right off the bat just because of
Just
that.
because of that.
And
Sure.
yeah, and I've seen all of the takes, and it it's interesting because it was not unintentional, right?
Oh,
Like,
no,
so I've seen a lot of reviews say like, oh, Mark Ruffalo is doing a bad Trump impression. I'm like, yeah, that was the character.
it's the whole idea.
That was the goal. It was almost like Bong Joon-ho was like, I'm not sure enough people got the message of Parasite, and so we're going to make it really, really clear what he is trying to say in this
Yeah.
one, which is like fuck capitalism and conservative ideology in general, which what are you going to do? Like, that's the movie.
That's the
if
movie.
you
That's it.
if that does not sound appealing to you, don't go see this movie because
Yeah.
it is going to beat you over the head with it. Um, I thought Ruffalo. It was kind of weird comparing that to his Poor Things performance because it felt like
Yeah.
even more out there than that one.
But people are drawing comparisons between the two, and I guess there's on the surface there are some similarities there, but I
Hmm.
think if you dig half a layer deeper, they're very different characters in many ways. But that's just my take on it. But
Yeah, but like it is literally like making a Donald Trump movie. They have red hats
they do.
like his fans all have red hats, and they're doing the one in the air thing that it's kind
Mhm.
of fascism esque, and believe whatever you want politically, but it's very clear what Bong Joon Ho believes politically, and he
Oh,
is
for sure,
telling you
100%.
up front in this movie, which a lot of people that'll turn them off. And if that turns you off, then this is not the movie for you.
Nope.
Uh, I was frankly shocked that he went as far as he did. Uh,
Yeah.
but again, it's kind of strange too, though, that like there is spoilers now from here on out. If you've not seen
Yeah.
this movie, like,
Yeah.
well, we're going into spoilers. There is a scene where he gets grazed by a bullet on the side of his face, and this scene
Wild.
was shot like 2 years before that happened,
Yes.
which is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
did he have a crystal ball or something? It was just
I don't
nuts.
know, man. There's that, and then there's the like a group of people that go to colonize another planet, which is something that Elon Musk has been talking
Yeah,
about for years,
yeah,
who is now Donald Trump's right hand man.
right.
But there was no way of predicting that 2.5 years ago
Yeah,
when they shot
it
the
was
movie.
kind of
It's
nuts.
really kind of crazy.
Yeah, I will say that I think this could be one of those movies, though, that when you look back at it 10 years from now, it doesn't have nearly it feels like a very of the time movie, which there's positives and negatives to that.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit like watching an Adam McKay movie,
Hmm.
uh, where it was just like you kind of know what you're getting into when you watch this movie.
Sure.
If you are a conservative seeing this movie, probably not for you, kind of thing.
Man,
Uh,
can
but
I
it
share
is
a
what
really
it
fun
is.
story real fast?
Sure, go for
Like
it.
15 seconds. Vice is an Adam McKay movie, right? The
Hmm.
one that Christian Bale
Yeah,
was Dick
yeah.
Cheney in. I went and saw it, and the four people that were in front of me were very old white people, and they went into it. They had popcorn, they had big sodas. They were like, I think they thought it was going to
It
be
was like a documentary
like
or
a
something, like
positive kind of
biopic.
biopic sort of thing.
Yeah,
They walked out halfway through like ranting
yeah.
and raving about how ridiculous it was. It made me chuckle because I was like, how do you not know what you're getting into with
Yeah,
this kind of
I
stuff?
can
But
kind of see it with this one too. Like, if you're not expecting this going in, if you don't know Bong Joon-ho's filmography up to this point,
sure,
and you
yeah,
don't know the themes that he always goes for,
right.
and actually Adam McKay is working with him on the Parasite TV show, so it
Oh,
kind
no
of
kidding, is he?
tracks, right? Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So that, like, it is what it is. It was incredibly over the top. There's one scene in the movie where they're eating dinner, and it's like they're like singing hymn, like
yeah,
church songs and
yeah,
stuff. And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, this is
That
where we're going.
that scene in the movie though, to me, was the most Bong Joon Ho scene
Yes.
of the whole film.
Yeah.
It's like you could show that to somebody and say, "Hey, who made this?" And if it was a film person, they'd be like, "Oh, that's a Bong Joon Ho thing."
Yeah.
Pretty wild. But enough with politics
Yeah.
because that's enough for people
It
to
was just
comment.
unavoidable in this one because it is so blatant. It's not like it's not like we're taking this movie and saying, I wonder what the messaging is, and like trying to connect the metaphors. It's like it's right there. It's laid out. This is what he's saying. take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah,
There's
that's
there's
going to be dominating the discourse for sure.
there's staying silent about politics. There's briefly mentioning it. There's hitting you over the head with a baseball bat, and then there's running you over with a semi over it. And
Yeah.
that's the level we're at with this movie.
What is interesting is that both Mark Ruffalo and Bong Joon-ho said in interviews that the character was not based on any specific politician. And I had to think that they would like wink at the interviewer and then start laughing after they said that, because like it's right there.
Yeah, like
It
how do they
is
even
what it
say it with a
is.
straight face? But
Yes.
um, so aside from the politicalness of it all, which depending on what direction you lean in, might change your thoughts on the film, whatever. You mentioned earlier that the script is one of the things that kind of let you down. Uh, I think from the discussions that you and I had offline about this, you thought the first half of the movie was actually pretty solid, but it kind of
Yeah.
fell apart in the second half or maybe the third act. So I'd love for you to just dive in a little bit deeper about what didn't work in the script for you.
Yeah, I felt like it built to this moment, which was Mickey 17 meets Mickey 18, which is not
Mhm.
a surprise because it's in the
In the
trailers. Like
trailers,
it's
yeah.
leading up to that. It's
Yep.
the moon moment. If you've seen Moon, it's the same basic plot point there where he meets the clone that he's not supposed to meet. And I thought everything leading up to that worked, right? It was pretty funny. You were seeing the death scenes, entertaining, and like you knew from the beginning that like we're starting at the end and then leading up to this point,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then we move on from there. And I
Yeah, it
thought that
does the
all of that
traditional, like, the record scratch. So you're wondering how I got
Mhm.
here kind of thing, and then
Exactly.
it tells you the whole story
Exactly.
leading up to that
Yes.
moment. Yeah.
And all of that worked for me. It
Yep.
set up a bunch of plot threads. And then once you introduce the other Mickey, it felt like it didn't know which direction to go in,
Hmm.
and it didn't really stick the landing. Some of
Yep.
the examples are there's this storyline with Kai, who's this like bisexual like third wheel character who like
Hmm.
comes on to him, and they have this big moment where like they're about to kiss, and then he runs away, and then they're like bargaining for which Mickey. And I thought they were setting up for a big moment for her later in the film, especially because she's in that dinner scene too, and
Hmm.
she's like gonna be the
Yeah.
colonizer, whatever. And then she just disappears entirely for
She
the
doesn't
entire
happen.
third
Yeah.
act of the movie, and then appears randomly in the very end.
Very end. Yep.
Stuff like that where it's like, what was on the cutting room floor there? What were you building towards? We spent so
Yeah.
much screen time in the first 60 minutes, whatever, 120 minutes of this movie with this character, and
Hmm.
then just goes nowhere.
Yeah.
So what was the point of that? There's other things like there's a random dream sequence in the very very end of the movie that feels out of place and not necessary. It
Yep.
didn't really tell us anything. Maybe this is a lost in translation type of moment and more of a Korean cinema type of vibe, but it didn't play for me. I thought the ending in general was kind of weird, and the final note it leads you on and it goes to black. I was like, that was the big ending? Okay. Like it just felt like a letdown. I don't know
Yeah.
if you had the same thoughts, but it just felt like it didn't know what it wanted to say other than the Donald Trumpness of it all.
Sure.
And there were a lot more interesting directions that it could have gone in, and didn't.
So I my biggest complaint with the film, and this could be a script thing, it could be an editing thing. There's a couple different ways you could skin the cat on it, but uh, it was just about 30 minutes too long for
Yeah,
me for the story
it
that
was
they
too long.
wanted to tell. The general conceit is there. It's a good concept, but it's stretched a little bit too much, and there's A, B, C, D, E, F, and G plots,
Yes.
and the latter half of those don't really 100% get resolved, right?
Yes.
I get the idea of trying to introduce a bunch of different personality types because Bong Joon-ho, one of his big things is showing the different sides of humanity, right? That
Hmm.
that that goes through his whole filmography, and I get wanting to do that here, um, but it was just, I think it was a little bit too much, and I think even if you wanted to keep some of those people in there, you could have done it in a little bit more economical of a fashion.
Yeah.
And then if this movie ran like a solid 145 instead of,
Hmm.
ironically enough, it's 217, which is pretty funny.
Ah,
Um, I,
maybe that's
I think it
why
would have worked a lot
you
better
had to end it
for
on
me.
17. Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, I think just some of that stuff, like even Stephen Yun's character, who Stephen Yun is deliciously despicable in this movie, and he's
Yeah.
great in the performance, but like nothing ever really comes out of his character. Oh
Yes.
well,
I
he got away. Okay, like whatever. Who
Yeah,
cares?
I didn't think like that was satisfying or necessary. Maybe if he had like a third act redemption type of plot where he saved something
Yeah,
like that, but that never really happens. And it's similar to the Kai storyline where it just doesn't feel necessary. You
yeah,
could have cut that storyline out entirely and just focused on the core elements of this story, and it would have
yeah.
worked.
Or it could be like there's a science officer in the movie that she's the one at the end that has the little creeper thing, the baby one, and she's petting it.
Yes.
If Kai and that character were the same person,
Yeah.
problem solved, right? You could
Yeah.
skim down 5 or 10 minutes of the runtime just for that, and it could be a little bit more,
That's
light
actually a
light
really
on its
good
feet.
point. Yeah,
But
that's a really good point. It could have streamlined a lot of these plots into the same plot,
yeah,
and I also feel like it could have dove deeper if you combine all those elements together to save runtime. You could have spent a little bit more runtime on the differences between Mickey 17 and Mickey 18
yeah,
and the implications of that, why they're different, because it's kind of making a statement on there's a bunch of different people inside your head, right?
hmm,
Where you have different elements of yourself that are manifesting in these two different physical bodies.
yep,
And it didn't really do that. It's interesting because we're reviewing this show called Severance every single week, and I
yeah,
feel like that show dives into that aspect
big time.
really, really well,
Yeah,
and this one could have and didn't.
yeah. Subscribe to the channel if you want those weekly Severance reviews. They're quite good, and people watch them all the way to the end. Uh, Unlike the rest of our videos. So, uh, but you're absolutely right though, because they mention very briefly in passing about how Mickey's 1 through 16 all had slightly different quirks. It's like a
Yep.
throwaway line of exposition or whatever. But I would have really loved it if they dove a little deeper into
Hmm.
that, because when you get to 18 and all of a sudden Pattinson busts out the Batman voice, and it's
Yes.
like, oh, ooh,
Yep.
we got something here. And to explore that, I think would have suited the story a little bit better, instead of some of the other stuff that we saw. But
Yeah,
uh,
and I thought the ending kind of let itself down too. I didn't expect the big explosion ending, but I guess it's fine. One thing I did pick up on is that the button presses. He
mhm,
presses the button at the beginning of his life and at the
mhm,
end of his life, and then also blowing up the
the printer,
printer as well. It's like every time he presses the button, something explodes.
yeah,
Nice
that,
little
that is an
through
interesting
line
call.
there.
Yeah.
But
Um, so enough of the negative. Let's wrap this one up on some positive talk. First, I thought the craft was all excellent. I thought
uh-huh.
that the set designs, the visual effects, cinematography, music, all fantastic, but kind of expected because this movie cost, I think, around $125 million.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of a blank check movie after winning Best Picture at the Oscars. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on all that stuff too.
Yeah, I thought all of the craft was great. I thought the acting was awesome across the board. Even the secondary characters. One of the characters that I was constantly laughing at was like the science guy who's leading like
Yeah,
the virus planning, and like in that dinner scene where he gives him the painkillers and then he's still
Purple Joe.
screaming and he just like deadpan, the painkillers are not working, sir. I laughed quite a bit. That guy was always good throughout the movie. I thought Toni Collette did really great in
Fantastic.
that role. She's
Yeah,
always good in
man.
everything, but
Between this movie and Knives Out, she's
yeah.
gotten real good at being a scumbag.
Yes, yes. Yeah, everyone's great. Ruffalo is doing his thing, and that's going to be the most divisive performance. But I think he's doing what he's supposed to do. Like, I
Sure,
would assume that the direction there was play Alec Baldwin playing Trump. Like,
sure.
it's not playing the Apprentice version of Trump. It's like play a parody of him, kind of thing. And whether you like that or not, I think will depend on whether you like Donald Trump or not, right? If
Yeah.
you don't, then you might like the performance. If you do, then you'll hate the performance. It's just one of those, right? I think he's
Shane,
doing what he's supposed to do.
if I had a dime for every time one of the Avengers played Donald Trump in a movie,
That's true. You'd
I'd
have
only have
two
two
dimes.
dimes. which is weird that it happened twice in the span of six
Yes,
months. But
it's true.
here we are. No, I thought actors all did a great job. Naomi Aki was great too
She was
as
awesome.
Nasha, and honestly, I genuinely think that Robert Pattinson is one of the most interesting dudes working today
Yeah.
in the business. And when
I
you
didn't
look at
mention Robert Pattinson because it's so obvious how good he is in this
yeah,
movie, but yeah, like he can't get enough acclaim for this.
just looking at his career from the beginnings with the Twilight stuff and the Harry Potter of it all and everything, and then he goes away for a while and he comes back and he does Good Time, and then
Yep.
uh, the Lighthouse, and then the Batman and Tenet, and then now this. Like, the dude has a good agent, and
Yeah.
they're getting good scripts sent in his direction, and much to his credit, he's very good in all of those movies too.
Yeah.
So
He's the best part of this movie by far. And
yeah,
I would say if you're interested in seeing that performance at all, then I think you'll be interested in this
yeah,
movie. Without the script stuff and whatever, just seeing Robert Pattinson do his thing in this movie was enough for me.
yeah. Yep, I would agree with that for sure. So, to wrap things up, Shane, is this movie worth taking a trip to the cinema to enjoy?
I think so. I've seen the last two movies that I saw in theaters. One was Captain America, and one was this. And when I walked out of Captain America, I thought
Oh
I
man,
wasted my time. Like it wasn't very good, but I felt like I got nothing out of it. This
sure,
one I
yeah,
think is deeply flawed, but I still enjoyed it. Like I had a good time. I didn't regret seeing it. So yeah, if you like Bong Joon-ho, if you like Robert Pattinson, any of that, I'd recommend it.
yeah, and like you said earlier, original movies like this are not going to
Mhm.
get made if people
Yeah.
don't go to the movie theater to support them. Either
Yeah.
that, or they're all just going to get made for streaming, and then
Yeah.
you lose the theatrical experience for stuff like that, and it just turns into the big blockbuster IP stuff that's available in theaters. So
Exactly.
I think it's worth seeing. It for me, it's like a solid 7 out of 10 movie. Feels
I think we
good
both
to,
gave it the 3.5 on Letterboxd, and that's about right.
and that's about right. But cool, and I think that's just the beginning of what could be a nice little run of movies here in 2025. It looks like there's some good ones coming out over the next few weeks that hopefully we'll get the chance to review, and TV as well. For God's sake, this is it's like a
Last of Us,
murderer's row of
Andor,
television
yeah.
that's going on right now. So we'd love to hear from you though. Drop us a comment below. Let us know what you think. If you saw this movie, what your thoughts are. If any of the buzz about it has turned you off from seeing the movie, drop us a line and let us know about that too. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tap that notifications bell. We got a couple weeks of Severance left that we're doing here on the channel. And then, like Shane said, Last of Us, Andor, there's a ton of great stuff going on right now. So stay tuned for that and so much more. And until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.